Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, everybody want a mic up? We'll start with approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Randy?
Second.
Katie seconds. Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes. Move on to 4, public forum. None. Nothing? Move on to number 5.1, approve combined summary of 2019-2020 World's Best Workforce and Achievement and Integration Report.
We'll turn it over to Ms. Wellnitz for this. You have it on your agenda, or you can sit like this and look at it upside down if you want.
Good evening, everyone. This year, our World's Best Workforce Report, we're looking at our first goal of all students ready for school, all students, ready for kindergarten. We used our FAST results, and last fall, we had 70% at low risk in the early reading screener. They had 57% the previous year, which was amazing. And then they were at 74 low risk in math on that same screener, and we have marked that as being on track. All students in 3rd grade achieving grade level literacy, we are unable to report for this year as there were no MCA results. However, I did include that our 3rd graders at their winter FAST screening were at a 65%, meaning 65% of them were at or above grade level. Closing the achievement gaps between student groups, we are also unable to report this information as there's no MCA data and FAST data is not disaggregated by student group and only is taken in grades kindergarten through 8th grade. All students are career and college ready by graduation. We are on track for this goal. Our graduates from 2018, 63% of them were enrolled in an institution of higher learning. That is down a little bit from the previous grads of 2017. And remember, graduation report is always delayed. So that's why we're talking 2018, not 2019 or 2020. And then 26% of our 2018 graduates in the free and reduced price student group were enrolled in an institution of higher learning, which was also down from 52%. This is a multi-year goal, so it's not something we can accomplish in 1 year, and I felt that we were still on track with the data that we had. All students graduate. We are on track for this as well. The unofficial results for the class of 2020, 96.8%. So that's just that grade level. That's not a 4-year, that's not a 7-year, that's just our students who graduated last year. Our 2019 4-year rate was 84.5%, and our 2018 4-year rate was 76.2%. So our 4-year rate is trending up, which is good and puts us on track in our multi-year goal. This year is our first year we get to report also on our achievement and integration goal. World's Best Workforce and Achievement and Integration Summary Report live together. So that's why you're hearing about it together. Our first goal and strategy, our first goal is by 2022, the percentage of students in the free and reduced price student group will increase from the current proficiency level of 29.3% to 45% as measured by the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessments in Math. And this strategy is the hiring of our math specialist. And we were unable to report because of our 5 indicators, we were only able to measure 2 of them because of COVID. and no MCAs. So the two that we were able to report are positive. We looked at our winter screening to spring screening in grades K through 8, and we only had spring screening in math in grades 5 through 8 last year, but we were at a 26%. That's the number of students moved up. So our target for 2020 was 30%. We were at a 26% with those just 3 grades, which was pretty amazing. We also have an increase in perception, in positive perception from teachers in finding co-teaching with the math specialist beneficial to their growth in implementing the Minnesota math standards and using instructional best practices in mathematics. Our target was 25% and our actual was 90. So it was they're perceiving, our staff is perceiving the support they're receiving from our math specialist at this present time to be highly positive. Same goal, different strategy. Our math specialist, of our 6 key indicators here, only 2 were measurable due to COVID and no MCAs. Again, I use the same data of grades 5 through 8 in the spring, having their 26% moving up a risk level. And the increase in positive perception from teachers of students who have received intervention support, our target was 25%, our actual was 100. This is working really well with our students. And I am so excited to see our results as we move forward, having a math interventionist working with our students who are closing gaps quickly. We have another goal. Same goal, third strategy, sorry. This one is our professional development goal, and we were unable to present on this one as well. We use the same data in here about the 26% of our students moving up in math in the spring. Our second goal is by 2022, Pipestone students in grades K through 12 will self-report an increase in their level of comfort with initiating and maintaining social relationships with students different from themselves, racially, ethnically diverse, socioeconomically diverse, from an average comfort level of 2 out of 5 to an average comfort level of 4 out of 5, as measured by a district creative survey utilizing a 5-point Likert scale. So again, of our 5 key indicators, only 1 was able to be measured. Our math fun night that was planned to happen in the spring with Edgerton and Pipestone students was canceled, and a math-focused week of summer school with Pipestone and Edgerton students was also canceled. So we have the same data as the other goals do of the key indicators of progress at 26%. But I can report that tomorrow morning at 8:30, we're having a 3rd grade class from Pipestone and a 3rd grade class from Edgerton work virtually together on this integration goal, which is so exciting. And that is all I currently have for our World's Best Workforce and Achievement and Integration Summary Report. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions for Melanie?
I'd just like to add that typically this would be a significant report for the board and for our school district with our strategic plan, but when you don't have MCA tests and, that was what kind of some of these things are based upon, it's a little bit challenging. We've been asking MDE about this, and they wanted the report completed, so we're completing it as best we can, and so we recommend your approval of it, even though it's
I think it's good feedback that we're seeing that staff, are liking the math interventionist, and it's seeming to help students. I think that's at least good for the money we put out there to hire them.
Yep.
I had one question. What do you consider an institution of higher learning? Would that be a tech school?
I believe that
Four-year?
data is both. It can be a 4-year institution or a technical college,
post-secondary.
post-secondary of any sort.
Yep.
Okay. Good. That's what I hoped the answer was.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the combined summary for the World's Best Workforce and Achievement?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Katie and Brad? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes. Move on to 6, consent agenda. Before we go into that, I would like to thank Pipestone Youth Basketball Association for a $1,000 donation for girls' varsity basketball uniforms. Christ the King Lutheran Church donation of $100 to Wellness Room. And Sweet Township of Pipestone County donation of $7,575 to the Corona Relief Fund. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Brad and then Randy. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes. Move on to 7. 7.1, review elementary building budget year-to-date.
With the, both items there, the monthly bills and then the treasurer's report, we spent $3.78 million last month, and to date, we've spent about $15 million of our $29 million bond, so, and everything is going well.
Yep. Are there any questions about the review of the elementary building bill? Any questions? Hearing none, then we'll move on to 7.1.2, approve treasurer's report for elementary building bond October 2020. Are there any questions?
Did you review the elementary building bill? 7 questions. You did, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, are there any questions on the treasurer's report for the elementary building bond? Any questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report for elementary building bond for October of 2020?
So moved.
Second.
Katie and Lance? Okay, all those in favor of approve treasurer's report for elementary building bond, signifying by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes. Seven point two, review budget year-to-date. Are there any questions on the budget year-to-date? Any questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to 7.3. Approve treasurer's report for October 31, 2020. Are there any questions? Questions? Jackie, you want to give us the numbers then?
Sure. Right now, the cash balance in general, well, all the funds combined, 7.7 million at the end of October.
Okay. Any questions yet? Any questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report for October 31, 2020?
So moved.
Randy, do I have a second?
Second.
Katie? All those in favor of approving the treasurer's report for October 31, 2020 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes. 7.4, approve regular bills for November 2020. Are there any questions on the regular bills for November 2020? Any questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the regular bills for November 2020?
So moved.
Randy, I'll second. All those in favor of approving the regular bills for November 2020 signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes. 7.5, approve high school activity bills for November 2020.
I guess I just have some discussion. On the Cabin 6 films for the coronation, I guess I don't understand why we're not using the contract that we already paid for to film some of these type things. And if it's not working, then we need to contact that company and they need to stand behind that. We shouldn't have to kick out $1,200 more dollars just to tape our coronation and live stream it when we already have that in place.
You got anything?
Yeah, the equipment was being, what are they, calibrated, and it wasn't ready, and we had coronation, so we felt we wanted to do something, and so, yeah, I understand.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
So if we do not have a basketball season, are they giving us a break, or are we stuck?
That was it's a 3-year contract, so it will go on.
I didn't know if they got money back, or...
We signed up for 3 years, I believe, so it'll be here until then.
Not that it makes it okay, but is that being paid out of the COVID funds?
I can tell you if someone tells me what page that.
We did do some of it out of there.
It's
Yep.
number 52010. Page 1 of the activities. If that's what do you need?
Out of the high school activities?
Yep, it's that one. I know, I just want to make sure that we're getting,
No, it's not, because that's coming out of high school activities, that's student-generated dollars. It's not coming out of the general fund, it's coming out of high school activities.
well, I just know there's been a lot of,
No, I can't run that.
that people have been having a hard time watching it, things like that, and viewing it, so I think that's something that we need to make sure we're giving them feedback on, especially if it's not available when we need it.
Okay. Any further questions? Any other questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the high school activity bills for November 2020?
So moved.
And Lance. All those in favor of approving the high school activity bills for November 2020 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Katie votes no on that one. Oh, motion passes. Move on to number 8, board forum information, board reports and updates. Anybody have anything you want to contribute?
The policy meeting committee met, and we have a bunch of policies to review, nothing huge, I don't think. It was just a matter of some different statutes changing and some wording.
Facility steering committee met, toured the new facility again, and it's coming along at a very good pace.
Good.
Really moving.
It's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
You got anything, Randy?
Kevin provided a budget update on that. It looks like we still have a pretty healthy contingency, so we ended up discussing options as far as what the roads will look like at the end of this, and if we can use some of those dollars for that. Or a couple of the other priorities. Parking lots, roads, they'll be beat up, so we'll have to plan for that.
East parking.
No.
And then they're gonna put doors in the commons area, and it's gonna go out 4 feet.
Yeah, they'll have a plywood surrounding
So
the
it'd be
big
easier.
work area, so.
Be
nobody-
easier, so they won't have to do it in May. Be kind of just rolled into them. So it'll be a little construction area there in that commons, but
It won't affect the flow of the commons at all. It's just, they wanted permission to be able to start now with it instead of later on and wait until students were out.
I'd like to comment that if we do have extra funds, and I've mentioned it before, I think we need to look at if we can change the landscaping options for the new part, so it's better quality than what we did at the high school here at the entrance with poly, rock, something that's going to prevent weeds, something that's our staff is going to be able to maintain for years to come.
With minimal effort.
With minimal effort, because what we have now is going to be a pain, or what we got from this first round. And I think the money spent for an upgrade would be well spent.
I know, I worry about all that grass. Is it going to be grass in the middle of those like where it's the little pieces in out there in that, I mean, it looks like it's grass planted there. Is that what it is, or is there just weeds that aren't planted yet? Or,
Well, they planted grass, but the quack came before the grass.
oh, is
grew.
that the deal? Because to
But
me, that
there is
looks...
grass coming. It
So-
would look better if we'd knocked down the quack.
Are we going to be able to mow that, though, decently?
There's a couple of very small islands in the middle of the parking lot. Those are not to be grass.
Okay.
They will be a shrub of some kind. The bigger areas, I know on the south side, that'll be grass. But those little islands,
Yeah,
they were going to put some type of shrubbery in there
Okay.
so that it wouldn't be anything we mow.
okay, good.
Yeah, it's kind of hard when you're,
Right,
there's a lot of little areas out there. and-
Yeah,
and,
there is.
But there's little islands that, I mean, if you had to, it'd be almost a push mower, a very small area, but that.
that's
that
why I
would-
think it
Yeah,
probably shouldn't be grass.
it won't be, or not
Good.
supposed to be.
One thing we do also need to do, Kevin, check with Bill where they're at on putting protection for the fire hydrants. Because I did notice the fire hydrant coming off of the Circle Drive now. There are tracks that are within 4 or 5 feet of it.
We have that and the parking lot lights that are still,
Yep. But I know they had to reach out to the engineering firm first, and have to check with Bill, see where we're at on that.
I was also wondering with the construction going on and that, I don't know if you call it fencing or whatever, that barrier that they put on the south side of the property, where they normally push all our snow. If we were to get snow, would they just push that out?
You mean when?
Move it with the payloaders, or, and then,
More than likely,
or puncture a tire hitting hitting one of them T-posts, or?
yeah. Okay,
yep, I'll check into that too.
anybody else have anything?
The only other thing I'd add is, we talked a little bit about additional technology needs with the new school. And so Kevin's working through that with Josh, and we all kind of decided as a committee that that's probably a priority as far as getting things done correctly and right, and we want to make sure the kids have what they need going into the new building. So
Yeah.
that was another consideration for the contingency.
Our goal is that in December, we'll have those items, because we're planning to have the furnishings presentation and approval, kind of final approval by the board, and then there's some technology items and some other furnishing things that we're looking at, so those will be big ticket items, and the goal is to have them to the full board by December, so we'll see how that, things seem to be coming together there. I haven't heard much on the technology, but
And do
maybe
we
that'll be
know,
January.
do we know how much the playground is going to be? Do we have, I mean, that's
That's
in
all.
already?
That's all been
Okay.
done, yep. I'd have to look that up.
Just so, I just want to make sure it's
That's in.
in,
Yep,
I
yep,
thought it was, but,
yep.
Anything else?
Negotiations have met a few times between the last board meeting. We were just countering back and forth as far as proposals go. We did settle with Ludolf's, which was approved at the last,
It's tonight,
tonight, yeah, it's on the agenda.
yep.
Other than that, things are going, I guess, as well as they can, and we're just continuing to work through that process.
Yep. Okay. Nothing else, we'll move on to number 9, Administrators Report, Superintendent's Board Report, Enrollment, Learning Model Management, and Minnesota State High School League Membership.
The enrollment is up 8 for this month, so we're 8 more than last month, so that's always good. Always keep an eye on that. In terms of the enrollment and learning model management and those types of things, I know there's questions with our county numbers, and we probably talk about this every board meeting, but we monitor very closely where we're at. We did put in a COVID dashboard on our website, mostly for staff, but it is open to the public. Sometimes I think people were wondering, how can we be open, but when you look at, we only have 4 positives, and, 150 students on quarantine is a lot, but when you're looking at 1,100 students in the district, that's still 1,000 that are still able to continue with education. And even when they're on quarantine, they still are doing school, and, and if someone's not feeling well, of course, they're sick and they don't have to do their schoolwork. But we do continue with that. I did add some learning models through the holidays. The Service Co-op has kind of taken a look at southwest, south central Minnesota. It's a couple pages that's attached on there for you to look at, and you can kind of just see what's going on. If you start hearing that everybody is going to distance learning, that's not true. There are some who are, and there are some who aren't, and some have made choices to go to distance learning until January. That's their district's choice. I know there's questions about the governor maybe closing school. We have our models and we follow them and we're working. And so, knock on wood, we've been fortunate. A lot of schools, they just don't have staff, and that's why they end up closing, or they start getting infections and they can't trace it in their schools. Our principals do a good job, and our nurse, of trying to figure out where everything's at and make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep everybody safe. And we do have to send some, students home, but, so far we have not seen any transmission really going on in the school. I know that there are people who say, I got it in school. We're not aware of that. We have not been informed by the Department of Health about that, or Public Health. We have a suspected one case, but we can't really, but we think there may be one. So that's kind of where we're at with things. So I know that there are a lot of questions about it, but we monitor, believe you me, we are monitoring this on a daily basis, and it takes a lot of our time, and we're just trying to keep, everybody healthy and safe, and continue with school, because we think that, I think we're in that nice size where we're able to spread everybody out. We've got, unfortunately, we had to send the 8th grade home. We only had to send the 8th grade home. That could be another way to look at it. We didn't have to send the whole middle school home, and, some schools are smaller, don't have that. The districts that are much larger, I feel for them. I can't imagine trying to keep track of thousands of several thousand students. So I don't know. We're following, and I speak with, like I said, Department of Health and with our local county, and go, are we still okay? And they say they're not seeing it in our school. So it's all outside in our community. So hopefully things settle down, and we can, when that happens, we might be able to start considering if we can move to more in person. So
I'll just comment that I think I heard we're one of 2 schools in the Big South Conference that are actually still in person, while most of the others are distance learning.
For the most part, I think, some have elementaries that are in school, but most of the high schools, I believe, are, I think we're only the 2 high schools that still are doing some type of in-person, with our hybrid model. So
I'd say that's a reflection of how well that our administration and our staff are doing, managing this. So I just want to say kudos to everyone for doing that, because I think it's pretty unheard of and uncommon in the area for this many students to be in school. So I appreciate the work everyone's doing.
there's a lot of schools that have been in and out of different learning models, and we've been fortunate to be able to stay with what we've been doing. So part of it's planning and facilities and just where things are at, so.
Okay. Any other questions for Kevin? Any other questions? Okay, then we'll move on to 9.2, Principals Board Report.
Well, I had the Minnesota State High School League, that got added late because it just came later on Friday. I love 4 o'clock emails, but the high school league, we did ask for them to reconsider how they are assessing those membership fees, and that they do it in a little bit more equitable manner. But our primary focus was, we recommended they do it in a more equitable manner based on a per pupil basis. They did review it on November 12th. They had their finance committee look at and reconsider. They are doing a reduction for the Class A and AA schools, so they will be reducing our share of this through whatever reasons, and I attached a letter so you can read through that. But they are going to move forward with those fees, so I guess I feel like they did revisit it. I think there's other, it's kind of like if the board had a subcommittee go out and say, want you to investigate this and come back with us a recommendation. You accept the recommendation, and then everybody gets mad, and you say, well, we didn't like your recommendation. So you know how that could go. So, but it is something that is definitely on the docket. They did add on the last sentence that the board of directors will be meeting. They will be continuing to discuss this as the future. I think as superintendents, our major concern is this going to be yearly? What's going on, and is this something that, we need to be looking at their whole financial health? So, I would say that when that bill comes, it's, it isn't exactly what we wanted, but they also didn't just completely blow us off, and so we'll probably, I don't have the,
That comes next month.
next month probably is when we'll get that, so, but that's kind of the update on the high school league thing, so.
Okay. Any questions on the high school issue? Any questions? Okay, then we'll move on to 9.2, Principals Board Report. Whichever one of you wants to start.
Go ahead. We're going to tackle this together.
It's like a tag team effort on this one, same topic. Their world of,
We're sharing our world of COVID tracing, I guess if you call it that, contact tracing.
Yeah, and that really occupies quite a bit of our time each day, trying to, because we're continually getting new information, and we get it in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's through the rumor mill, sometimes a teacher will say, hey, did you know about this kid? It's, well, no. And then sometimes they'll call and leave a voicemail, and sometimes it's just a general email. So we get information in a lot of different ways, and we try to follow up. And I can say in my office, I know we've tried to streamline our process from the time that we get information and how it comes to me, and then how we document it on our shared document so that our staff can see who's out temporarily and who's out full-time, so that communication is there, and it's just a continual challenge each day to have that as accurate as possible. Even tonight this afternoon, I was looking through some of our information and looking at our attendance and where we are with certain grades, since we're kind of in that midterm point of quarter two. And I'm like, well, where's this kid been? And where's this kid been? And so then I go, and I didn't get any documentation on it, and they're not on my list anywhere. So I start following up with those kind of things. And that's some of the challenges that I think it's easy for some of our students to slip through the cracks, and we're trying to stay in tune with that as much as possible. But that's some of what we're working on, trying to be consistent and communicate that to our staff so they can best work with our kids.
And I would say Corey probably has more, I don't want to say trouble, but it's a little bit more difficult probably to trace than for me, since people are moving around a little bit more up here, and we keep our kids pretty isolated at the elementary school. And because they're kids, and we do a lot of group work and one-on-one work, we a lot of times have to quarantine the whole classroom. So, but we do go by individual basis as well and take that time to look. And I would say probably the most complicated part is when you get that call at 7 at night and you're trying to figure out and call people and who's where and who were your contacts, and so that's probably the most challenging, I would say. But I think we got it down to a pretty good art, if you want to call it that, and we do keep, Google form with my secretaries as well, and so we can always kind of see where we're at and follow who's coming in and who's going out, and when they're coming back, and how long they're quarantined, and the list is getting longer and longer, of course, as you look from the beginning of the year, so now I'm starting to mark off after every week a little pink line so that I can see where it ends and where it begins, and then get those numbers to Mr. Enerson, so.
And we don't have, at the middle and high school, quite the urgency once we get a notification, because we're not in every day. So I have a little bit more time to investigate and try to make determinations on the close contact exposures and some of those potential scenarios. And one of the other real challenges is trying to find, get accurate information from families, because they don't always tell you. You'll get an email saying, well, so-and-so's positive and the student was a close contact, so the student's out. And I'm like, well, I need a lot more information than that to determine when the student can return. And so there's just a lot of tracing that goes along
Yeah.
with these scenarios, and it's all just part of it. And I do think I understand it a lot better.
We do too. It's kind of becoming second nature, which is a little scary, but it's kind of just the lay of the land right now, so.
Yeah.
You also have to report to the Department of Health.
Yes.
There's a online that they have to go in and report every positive case of a
Yes.
student or a staff member. So we are also reporting all of that. We get it before they do. I didn't know how that was, I thought, they'll always know before we do, but
Yeah.
now I'm understanding very clearly. We probably know 99% of the cases before the Department of Health ever does. I mean, they do the test, but in terms of their recognition of the school and where it's all at,
Right.
so.
So that's just that
Little
survey
update.
for MDH is just another
Yeah.
piece of the whole thing.
Yep.
So.
You guys have any questions?
Any questions?
How's the staff handling it?
It's hard. It can be hard. But, it's,
Yeah.
I say we take it minute by minute. That's been my new motto this year. It's not day by day, it's minute by minute. So, because things can change in a minute.
It is very, to me, one of the more challenging aspects is the organizational nature
Yep.
that teachers have to approach their job with this year. And we all know it's important to be organized, but now you've got kids in 2, 3, 4 different scenarios than what they're typically used to working with. And I think that has created a challenge for several staff members to really figure out how can I be really efficient at what I'm doing so that I can connect and still teach all my students. So that, to me, that's been a barrier to overcome, probably one of the highest issues. This past week, we tried to do a little bit of recognition for our teachers with American Educator Week, and just have some fun little games and such. So they could take a minute or two out of their day and hopefully not stress about things, but enjoy a little bit. And so from time to time, we try to
Yeah, we just
lighten
have
things
those
up and have fun.
conversations, and I try to touch base with my staff every week and go into each room and talk to them and just see how they're doing. The in and out is hard. I mean, we have a couple classes who have been in quarantine twice now, so that gets hard. And not just hard for the teachers, but hard for the kids too. So,
I mean, are there any new tools or anything out there? Like a year ago, hardly any of us even knew what Zoom was. I don't think we heard the word, and now there's Zoom and there's all these other platforms out there to help, at least on the business side, which I would assume someone's creating or coming up with a new.
if I can butt in on that question, our staff primarily use Google Classroom, and in what Mr. Strasser was mentioning about organization, helping teachers in the past couple of weeks learn how to use Google Sites along with Google Classroom, because Google Classroom has its form and function, and it's very much student interfaced, and it's very much one day, one assignment, one thing at a time, where if they can incorporate a Google Site to give the bigger picture, that's what I've been helping staff do the past couple of weeks, just to try and see, okay, does that help? And to alleviate the tension of teachers, you know, while they have kids in front of them face-to-face, uploading something to Google Classroom, sharing something if someone's suddenly absent, so on and so forth, so that their time is best spent when there's students in front of them.
You know, because like Randy, I mean, I'm pretty proud that we've been able to keep the schools open. And, you know, anything we can think of and come up with so it continues.
And our staff all have access to a document camera now. We were waiting on an order that came in last week. And so pretty much every staff member has a document camera that they can shoot down at their desk. They can also flip it up and share what's going on in the classroom for students if they're on the other end.
Nice.
I've seen it in play in Miss Klein's room, which is awesome. And so just to see both ways you can use it. We had considered looking at some other resources and tried a few out, but this was the one that was most useful.
Perfect. And that's what a lot of this is finding out what is the most useful, most efficient. And there's a lot of really cool things out there, but it all takes time and energy to figure out how to use. So I think when we do a lot of these little approaches, kind of tweak things, help staff little by little improve their craft, it goes a long ways towards being very effective with teaching and learning. So to me, that's a big thing. I was in a classroom last week. It was it was just fun to see because the teacher was quarantined, and she was teaching, and I was in there subbing. I mean, sitting there watching these kids. They did independent work, and then after 10 minutes, then they transitioned right into they all open up, and boom, for the next 45 minutes, they had their headphones on and they were engaging, and I'm sitting there, it's silent, except for every once in a while a kid says something. It was really fun, I'm not used to that. And you can do that in the middle level when you've got some cohorts of kids and a teacher who, you know, couldn't be in that day. So really cool stuff that we're able to continue educating. You know, I wouldn't necessarily say you could do that with freshmen, but I don't know if they would just sit and actually do that in the classroom. But that's a whole different story. So
I don't know, I've been impressed too by just how much staff have communicated with me as a parent. I have a kid in each, I have a grade schooler, I have a middle schooler and a high schooler, and I've gotten reports from all my teachers. I've gotten reached out to for conferences. I've gotten, a lot of them give the whole lesson plan for the week so that I know what's going on and what I can ask, especially my middle schooler about. Between Seesaw and then if there is a positive, I've always been, you get the message right away that there was somebody that in that area. So I've been really impressed just by all of that and the communication process that way. I think it's been good
Thank you.
on a lot of different levels.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions for them? Either one of you have anything else to add, or? Nothing?
No.
Okay. Then we'll move on to 9.3, Director of Curriculum Teaching and Learning.
We had an early out on November 18th, and our paraprofessionals participated in a bingo PD, that it was a bingo board that had live links, and the reports back, they felt that was the most engaging, and choice-wise, they felt they had good choices to make for this year's PD so far. So that was really nice to hear that they were able to engage in that. Our regular ed staff were divided between a few different areas. Most importantly, we had a follow-up professional development for our first through fifth grade math curriculum. And then we had some staff check in with absent failing students. And then we also provided a little work time because that's really important for staff right now. So we're gearing up for our next early out on December 9th, which will be our first cultural competency module. There are 3 modules, and we're going to work as a district through the first one on December 9th in virtual groups using the Service Cooperative's Cultural Competency online course. Does anyone have any questions for me? Thank you.
Hearing none, okay, thank you, Melanie. Move on to number 10, discussion items. 10.1, solar field and wind turbine considerations.
The Facility Buildings and Grounds Committee met and reviewed the RFP we received for a solar field. I've given you kind of a highlight here. The issue is that the rate for electricity is so low, which is good. We don't pay much for electricity, but it also isn't very good for the solar fields and those types of things. So the only proposal we got was basically the school district put up the $1 million, and we'll get a payback, and they would help us through that. So really, and I talked with a couple other solar providers afterward that did not submit RFPs, and same thing came. It just there aren't grants right now for this, and so putting up a solar field is just not a viable option for any third-party vendors, and I don't think it's too much money for us to put up front. So the committee basically doesn't support moving forward with a solar field, so I don't know how much discussion, if anybody has any questions or...
Nope. Any discussion?
We wanted to know, we looked into it, and I think that's where that's at, so.
Okay. So then, you want to address the turbine back?
The wind turbine, we, again, are back here. We could put about $65,000 into it to replace the generator. We've looked into some other repair options, and really nothing is viable. So we basically come down to the board making a decision if we want to put that in there or not. A couple other things. We have to renegotiate the rate at the end of 2021 with Sioux Valley Energy. That was a graduated increase, so that, if you recall, the solar field was about a 3.5 cent a kilowatt rate. Well, we're getting over 5 cents a kilowatt but that's been graduated up over the last 15 years. So, and it's a similar type thing when you put in these, but we will be going backwards when we negotiate the new rates in 2021. So then it comes down to, do we want to move forward with repairing the turbine, or do we just want to be done? So, I don't know. The committee kind of talked about it and felt this needed to be a full board discussion and decision. They didn't have a recommendation. They just said, here's the facts. Let's take a look at what people think. So I think with that, does anybody have any questions or discussion, or?
Did Sioux Valley indicate how long of a term the next round of negotiations would be? Like, because wasn't this last negotiated rate for like 10 years or
20.
something?
It was about a 20-year thing. I would say it would be similar. And we're not tied into anything with, it's not running right now. We're not tied into anything. It's just, it's something that would generate. Same thing going forward. And some facts, again, the committee looked at, the life expectancy of a turbine is 12 to 15 years. This one is pushing 18. It may run for another 10, but it may have another $50,000 repair needed next spring. It's hard to tell with something that old. So that's where your wisdom as board members comes in.
But if you put a generator in,
Yep.
that's where the life expectancy is, in the generator.
Yep.
So what we would have to figure out is, well, what is our true life expectancy of the blades? You know, to see if they, what failure rate there is on them. Because if you get by putting $65,000 generator in and you get your payback, decent payback for the next year or two, and then it does decrease, well, you've already recaptured what you put into it. But if a blade is only good for 22 years, then you're at the end of it again.
Yeah, I'd agree. If we could invest 65 and make 80 in 2 years, we'd be on the right side of it, but who knows how long it'll last
Right.
after that. I mean,
So I would say we should investigate to see what the blade life would be, then
Okay.
your next major item, and then your computer systems. And, you know, if they're rated at 20 years, then my opinion would be we discontinue the tower.
yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of where we were as a committee.
Yep.
You know, we wanted everybody else's input, but we pretty much came to the conclusion that we're at 18 years of a 20-year life expectancy, and what's going to be next? And with a lower return.
Right.
Yep.
It makes that lower return, even on the wind turbine, is really the hard point to make a decision on.
Yep. And if we can, you know, if the life expectancy is about that on the blades, you know, where we could get it removed and it's not going to cost us.
Right.
You know, then we're money ahead versus having to do the demolition ourselves.
When I just feel like the solar, I mean, that's always something that we could look at in the future if there's going to be grants coming up. I mean, you never know what might be available next year or the year after too, you know? I mean, it's not like we can't do it, it's just we are not going to do it right now.
Yep. I know my son works for a wind tower company, and they have to pay to get rid of the blades, and they're a lot larger blade, but they're paying upwards of $15,000 to get rid of a blade.
Yeah.
So that's $45,000 to get rid of the blades for a tower.
Right. I can look into these items for next month and,
Yep.
okay. Anything else that you would,
Any other questions or requests? No?
okay.
Okay. Then we'll move on to number 11. These are board action items. Can I put the first 6 together?
No,
They all gonna be separate?
well, you got the resource officer. When we get to the policies, I think you can
Okay.
do them, but
Okay.
the first few, we've got a couple things here, so.
Okay. Number 11.1, approved contract between Pipestone County and School District 2689 to provide a law enforcement resource officer.
We make a contract with Pipestone County for 4 years. We use our school safety revenue money specifically for it, so I recommend we renew the resource officer for another 4 years with Pipestone County.
Okay. Are there any questions?
Didn't we have a grant for that at some point in time, or?
The county had a grant,
Okay, that's what it was.
and that's where some of the costs, now what they've put in, the costs, it looks like we're going to still be contributing roughly the same amount, a reasonable increase, I think there is in there, but it isn't anything outrageous where we jump from 35,000 to 80,000 or something like that, so, no, about the same amount in there.
And the first resource officer that we had when Keith Freeman was out here, that was a grant, I believe.
Okay.
This one was the county had the sheriff's office had a grant.
Yeah.
We didn't.
Okay, any further questions? Any further questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the contract between Pipestone County and the school district to provide a law enforcement resource officer?
So moved.
Second.
Is it you, Lance, or Brad?
Me.
Lance. Okay, all those in favor to approve the contract between Pipestone County and the school district for law enforcement officer, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes. 11.2, approved contract with Rudolph Busing.
The negotiations committee met with Rudolph Bus Company, and negotiated a 2.25% increase on the regular routes and a 3% increase on our extracurricular and extra trip routes for the 2020-21 school year. There is still 2 additional years that the committee decided that we would wait to negotiate the rates on those years. So this is a 1-year rate negotiations that was completed, and the committee recommends that, and Ludolfs are in agreement with this, so.
What'd you say, it was 2.5 on regular routes, and what was on the other one?
2.25% increase on the regular routes and a 3% increase on the extra trips and the extracurriculars and van and special ed and all those things, of which a significant portion is special education.
And one of the reasons we offered to go this route versus a 2-year contract was with the bonding that the state will be doing. We wanted to be able to go into it knowing we are either going to get a 0 increase or what percentage of increase we'll get from the state
Okay.
for further negotiations. Otherwise, it would have been a 2-year.
Okay.
And they were acceptable
Yep.
to going with just the 1 year.
We met with them twice to come to this.
Yep. But they still have a contract for 3 years. And if, the rates could stay the same the whole time, but a year from now, they get the option to renegotiate.
What of this is guaranteed money?
Well, I mean,
Meaning if we were to shut down again, or, no extracurricular activities, or,
the regular routes are, I mean, and then I think if we have to shut down, that we pay 65% of that if we don't have school. Now, the state last year said that we had to pay, everybody, so
Right.
they were paid for their regular routes. That's the only thing that's guaranteed. The extra routes are all extra, so there's no guarantee with them. So they are as needed. If we run them, that's how it works. They get paid when we run those trips.
And so does this have anything to do with like because I'm assuming we're going to need some extra bus stops next year with the new elementary, or no?
That will be worked on with how is that going to look, how are we going to get the shuttles through town, and that might be adjusted. And
Okay.
we have all of that in there. Right now, we have 1 in-town route. If we have to run 2, then that would kind of come into play with that. But we'll be,
Okay.
that's more of an administrative thing, and we look at where that's all at. But
Okay.
we have 11 bus routes currently, and that's the main part of this contract. All that other, the in-town and how we adjust, that all pretty much is the extra trips, and that's negotiable.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve the transportation contract with Rudolph Busing?
So moved.
Got Randy and Lance on that one, Deb. Okay, all those in favor to approve the transportation contract with Rudolph Bus, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes. 11.3, adopt the 2021-2022 budget planning timeline.
Each year, I ask that we just kind of put together a timeline, so we kind of have some deadlines and stop points that we know that we need to meet for planning for the budget for next year. The ultimate, we have to submit a budget for 21-22 in June. This kind of starts in January and is the work that we do leading up to that. So just ask you to approve this timeline, and we'll follow it.
Okay, any questions for Kevin on that timeline?
On the timeline, and it says in February there's a work session to have the administrative team present the budget to the board. Is that new? Is that something, I don't remember having an individual work session for that, and I like the idea of it, so,
I think it's there if we need it,
okay.
and if we have issues, or if there's things to help the board understand what we're looking at. Typically, that's done when you do significant cuts.
Okay.
Hoping that we don't have to be looking at that, but we'll wait until Finance Budget Committee takes a look at our preliminary audit report.
Okay. Any further questions? Any further questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adopt the 2021-2022 budget planning timeline?
So moved.
Brad
Second.
and Katie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes. 11.4, resolution of school board supporting Form A application to Minnesota State High School League Foundation.
This is something we do every year, formality, the board needs to approve it so that we can be eligible for some student scholarships. For
Are there any questions? Any questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the resolution of the school board supporting Form A application to the Minnesota State High School League Foundation?
So moved.
Randy, do I have a second?
Second.
Brad, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes. 11.5, resolution authorizing issuance of certificates of election and directing the school district clerk to perform other election-related duties. Any information on that one, Kevin?
That is just for me to issue the
results of the election?
no, it's the certificates of the election for the four, and then also the acceptance of office and the oath of office forms for them to sign.
Okay. Formality with the election of the school board.
It's a certain time period it has to be done, and this is in the time period.
Okay. Are there any questions of Deb? Any questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the issuance of certificates of election and directing the school district clerk to perform other election-related duties?
So moved.
Randy, I'll second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes. 11.6, declare Army surplus utility vehicle obsolete.
I'm just curious what an Army surplus utility vehicle is.
We just got a new Gator John Deere for those four-wheel utility vehicles. And this is an old one from, it's electric. We had a piece go bad, the drive shaft, we had to have one made because you can't buy any parts for this thing anymore. So with the new one, we figured let's just get rid of that. We don't need it around, so.
I was just picturing like this big tank or something. Camouflage and I'm glad it's
Looks like a
not.
Gator.
You wanted to buy it, didn't you, Randy?
Are there any other questions? Any other questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to declare Army surplus utility vehicle obsolete?
So moved.
Lance, do I have a second?
Second.
Amy, all those in favor of declaring the Army surplus vehicle obsolete signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes. 11.7, first reading of policy 516, student medication.
The policy committee went through this. This policy is basically has some language in it that says that any unclaimed medications or drugs would be disposed of by the school at a set time. We did have some questions regarding the controlled substance portion because last year we had a policy that said we would not distribute or dispense medical cannabis on school grounds. So after this first reading, I will check in with the school nurse and make sure that this is all in alignment and that we have everything, and then bring it back for a second reading and approval in December. So no action needed on the first reading, but that's what that is.
Yep. Any questions? Any questions? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to 11.8, first reading of policy 610, field trips.
This policy has been in place for a long time. I guess we've kind of been looking at what are our procedures for the overnight field trips, and should there be some things that are in place there. We have a form in the office that just basically states the reason why, but I don't know if the board feels like we should have any other expectations in terms of field trips. This policy also did include about staff not using their own personal vehicles to transport students, which makes sense, so. But I guess the reason for reading it twice would be, is there any thoughts on this or any concerns with the board on terms of field trips that our students and schools make?
Did we ever decide if this had anything to do with like the Spain trip and the French trip? Weren't we checking into that? And what the,
I think there was question as to why do they not go before the board,
right, maybe
like
that's, okay.
like all the other groups. But I think that goes back to our, what's filled out, you know, what paperwork is done and what are the expectations. And I think that was a part of the question of the committee was,
Okay.
is, does the board feel that those trips should go before the board like every other group?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Are we gonna,
I don't know, I've been on, and they've come before the board before that.
yeah,
Let us know they're going. Because one thing is, they do represent the district while they're down there.
Right.
No matter what they say. One thing I was questioning on the local, because the red is the highlighted, that's new language.
Yep.
Okay. For, like my trucking, they do nautical miles. So you've got a local trip is considered 150 miles one way from the district. Well, you could take 3 different bus drivers and that's 150 miles to, or a trip to this point could be 3 different ways that you went.
right,
So I wonder if we should just go, you know, like the same way as what the National Transportation Board is 150 nautical miles. So all they do is, they got a dot, they draw a circle, if you're outside of that, it's an extended trip. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, how can I cut miles off to get there? That's what it is.
okay.
That seems to make sense.
Yeah, it does, yeah, I
They follow
agree.
the national rules as well.
Okay.
That was the only thing I had.
Great.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to 11.9.
Well, if you want to do 11.9 through 11.14, these are all the policies that they went through and recommended for one reading. And almost all of them are just minor updates, 1 or 2 words, no significant changes in any of these policies. Everything is in line with, you know, statutes and those types of things. So I could go through each and every one of them, but the committee did, and they're here. So
Okay.
Katie and Amy spent the time going through and reading and checking through all these policies, and their recommendation is that we approve them.
Okay. Then I will ask for a motion to approve 11.9, Policy 205, which is open and closed meetings, Policy 206, public participation in school board meetings, 11.10, Policy 419, tobacco-free environment, and Policy 421, gifts to employees and school board members, 11.11, Policy 507, corporal punishment, Policy 517, student recruiting, Policy 519, interviews of students by outside agencies, Policy 525, violence prevention, applicable to students and staff, Policy 528, student, parental, family, marital status, non-discrimination, Policy 555, guidelines for foreign exchange students, 1112, Policy 601, school district curriculum and instructional goals, Policy 602, organization of school calendar and school day, Policy 620, credit for learning, 1113, Policy 703, annual audit, Policy 707, transportation of public school students, Policy 709, student transportation safety policy, Policy 721, uniform grant guidance policy regarding federal revenue sources, 1114, Policy 802, disposition of obsolete equipment and material, Policy 904, distribution of materials on school property by non-school persons. Do I have a motion to approve 11.9 through 11.14?
So moved.
Second.
And seconded by Randy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passed. Number 12, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Katie and then Lance. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned.